Hello, everybody. Okay, in this video, I'm going to be talking about something very important. I think this video is going to help a lot of people, especially people that have been searching for love. If you're like in your 20s, in that black hole, I call it the black hole, your 20s is just like, like a gap decade. I'm not really sure what to call it. It's a weird time. I think I found the answer, the secret to the question why you're single. Why am I single? Am I just not lovable? Do people not love me? What's wrong with me? Am I dysfunctional? Do I have a lot of traumas, a lot of baggage? What's wrong with me, right? And I have the answer for that. I think I found the answer. I'm going to be talking about two theories, two ideas that are out there. And well, let's begin with this. When you are young, when you're born, you're a kid, you're a teenager, you experience a lot of influence from your family, from your family, from your friends, from your teachers, from your school, from your community, from your culture, right? Now, all of that influences, or all of those influences that you get basically are like layers upon layers over your individuality, over who you are, over your authentic you, over your identity, right? And what your 20s are about, and this kind of goes hand in hand with, I think there's a stage, the zodiac stage, where you enter it at age 18, which is the Capricorn stage. 18 to 22, you're in the Capricorn stage, and 22 to 26, you're in the Aquarius stage. And both of those signs throughout those years, basically from 18 to 26, you're heavily influenced by Saturn and Uranus energy. I think it's more Saturn. And Saturn is Chronos, it's the father. It's also very cold, very calculated, not emotional at all. It's purely rational and logical. And all of these influences that you have had, all of these warm, emotional, familiar influences that you have had throughout your childhood and your teenage years, you basically need to separate from that, because that is not you. Now, imagine a person that enters a relationship with all of that baggage, with all of those layers that aren't really who they are. If they enter a relationship like that, they're going to bring all of that into the relationship. So the objective is for you to get rid of the layers, not all of them, but get rid of the layers that don't belong to you, that aren't really part of your authentic you, right? You are an authentic you, but you have all of these other influences. And basically what those years, your 20s, are going to teach you, and this is very important, you need to learn this in isolation, because you can't be because if you're still with other people, and it's hard, that's why I call it the black hole. You're gonna suffer, and it's a very difficult, complicated time, because you basically need to be alone, and you're gonna suffer, but you need to be alone so you can get rid of all of those layers, all of those ideas, all of those influences that aren't yours, right? Let me give you an example. If you say, I like to watch TV, right? You're in your 20s, you're in college, you're living by yourself, and you say, I like to watch TV, and I watch TV in the afternoons or in the mornings, whatever, right? It's my hobby. And maybe your father did that, so you learned that from your father. And then eventually, after like 2 years of living alone, you stop doing it, right? You stop doing it because that wasn't who you really were. That was the influence of your father or your mother or whatever, right? Now, let's say you also say in your 20s, when you're in college, you're living by yourself, I really like to eat chips, right? And your brother used to eat chips, right? Your older brother. So you were influenced by your older brother. And after like 2 or 3 years, you continue to eat chips, right? That's who you really are, right? Now, I'm not saying that you need to get rid of everything your family has taught you, your community, everything you learned in your childhood and your teenage years. No, a lot of those things are who you are who you really are, right? You like those things. You just need to figure out which things are not part of you and which things are part of you, right? And this is because if you don't have a stable identity, you're going to fluctuate from one thing to another, right? Like, okay, now I do this, but this is not who I really am. So your identity is gonna be in constant conflict and in constant contradiction. And if you get with another person like that, and maybe even if the other person is like that, there's going to be problems, and you're not going to really get to know who the other person is deep down. So the 20s are like to shed all of that from you, right? And so you're able to have a stable identity, right? So you're able to meet a new person from another family who has also shed away their influences, and you get to meet who they truly are deep down, and there's that connection between an authentic identity and another authentic identity, and you share your identities, your stable authentic identities, right? And you get to experience the emotional, the familiar, the love again, right? Now, this is tied into Eric Erickson's theory of the stages of development, and it's called intimacy versus isolation. This goes on after the identity stage, which are your teenage years, where you're trying to kind of like figure out who you are, and you're confused, right? It's like, am I my family? Am I my friends? Am I my school? Am I my community? Right? Am I the celebrities I see on TV? Excuse me. So this goes on from the intimacy versus isolation goes on from 21 to 40. And you need to find that stable identity, right? To not be volatile, to not be changing. Now, I dare say that Eric Erickson's theories isn't really so much as fighting the good thing versus the bad thing, like in this case, the intimacy versus the isolation. I dare say it's actually a stage, right? Where you go from the negative to the positive. I dare say, I repeat it again, you go from isolation, which you first need to experience that isolation, and then you will get the intimacy, right? The love. The isolation, you need it because you need to strip yourself from all of those influences that you've had from your family, from your friends, from your childhood and teenage experiences. And then you will be able to have your identity, your authentic you, your stable identity, and then you will be able to achieve intimacy and love. Now, to kind of finish this video off, you may ask, well, how much isolation do I need? Because I know people that basically at their 20s, they find their true love. They seem pretty stable. And I know people that it takes them like the whole decade until like they're 29 or until their 30s, they find that stable love. And I think it's proportionate, and this is just an idea, I have a theory. I think it's proportionate to the exposure that you've had. So if you've had more exposure, and maybe it's not even the exposure, it's how hard you're hanging on to other people's ideals and other people's influences that aren't you, right? That aren't your authentic you. So it's kind of like in isolation, you need to look at everything, and you really need to let go of the things that don't make you you, and then you need to grab onto the things that do make you you, right? It's kind of like experimenting during that stage, but with yourself. So then you're able to have that identity, that stable identity. And if you achieve this, then you're able to find true love. Now, just to finish off, I do think it's proportionate to the level of exposure you've had. So if you've had a lot of exposure, if you've had a lot of influences, especially influences that don't make you you, that don't make you who you really are, then you're gonna have a longer time. You're gonna need more time in isolation, right, to really like let go of all that. And if you haven't had a lot of exposure, or a lot of influences that aren't really yours, then you're able to just simply say, okay, you know what? I already know who I am. I have my identity stable, and then you're able to find someone with a stable identity, right? Because the problem here would be if you don't have a stable identity, and maybe even the other person doesn't have a stable identity, you're gonna have a lot of conflicts, right? A lot of problems, a lot of baggage from other areas, and that could work. I mean, you could say, well, yeah, we'll work through our problems together, fine. But take advantage of the time when you're alone in your 20s, that black hole, because that's what that's for, right? It's for you to strip away from all of the things that don't make you who you really are. So I think that's the message. That's the most important thing we can take from that decade of black hole from the 20s. So yeah, you could find yourself uh, like in your early 20s already in a stable relationship, or it could take you longer, or it could take you longer and you may not even have that stable identity, which could lead to problems. You could work through them together, but you could also take advantage of it on your own, right? So let me know what you think. I think this is huge. I think this is very important. I hope I got the message across. If you didn't understand it, let me know in the comments and I'll try to explain it in a different way, or I'll try to make another video re-explaining it, paraphrasing or using more examples or something. Sometimes I don't use examples and I feel like that's what I should use. But if you understand the theory, the abstract ideas, then well, I hope this video did something good for you. And let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.